Director Olson, some questions there, some concerns, obviously, with some folks going through some things there in Beaver Hills, but anything addressed what the previous speakers mentioned?
So I believe it was last winter we had a fire out there, which there was a total loss to Derek's home. The fire was in the attic, and there's all sorts of issues, with the fire out there. One is when you have a fire in an attic, it's very difficult to combat because you can't go up through the ceiling because the fire is going to fall on you. If you go on top of the roof, you may fall into the roof. So we immediately realized, we got a problem there. In fact, there was 2 individuals that went inside the home. One of them was PSO Craig Birdie, who's sitting in the back of the room here, along with firefighter Eric Jensen. They went inside and they took a panel off of the ceiling, and as soon as they saw what was in there, firefighter Jensen said, let's get out of here. So they got out of here. Water is a problem out there. We had to haul water into that fire, and we weren't able to. The complication with that is if you spray water its maximum capacity with just one pumper, you'll run out of water. So you have to conserve your water. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 tankers. The city of Cedar Falls has 1 tanker, so we called in, I think it was 3 or 4 other agencies to help us haul water in. Janesville was one of them, I believe Dyke was one. I don't remember who they all were, it's quite some time ago. But we hauled 35,000 gallons of water into that fire. And unfortunately, we were only able to use 1 tanker at a time, because as you're hauling water in, and that roadway, we were able to back up 1 tanker, dump water, and then that tanker had to leave that road before we were able to back the next tanker in. So getting water there wasn't as quick as we would like it to have been. And I know we had numerous conversations and emails going back and forth between the neighborhood and even with Cedar Falls Utilities about providing water out there. They don't provide water to that location, it's rural water. It's my understanding, and I don't know this for certain, but the last conversations we had with rural water and CFU and some of the neighbors who are out there was they were going to pay to have a 6-inch water line in there. You hook up a pumper or 2 to a 6-inch water line and you'll collapse it. So it will provide you some water, but not as much water as we need to fight a fire like that. We're still going to be hauling water in. So that, although it could be helpful, water is still a challenge in a rural area. And I don't know what we can do about that other than for them to have a water tower and much bigger lines out there. I'd also like to address the concern about the firefighters leaving. I've stated it before publicly. We're going through some organizational change, and whenever you go through organizational change, whether it's a public or private business, you have individuals that don't like the change, can't deal with the change, and they leave. We've reached out to the union president, Scott Dix, and the vice president, Jeff Danielson, and we've asked to meet and discuss. They have refused to meet with us. And this conversation occurred approximately 1 month ago with them. They refused to meet and talk about any issues. You made a reference to we won't hire professional firefighters. Our PSOs are professional firefighters. I can tell you one of the PSOs that we have, who currently is a PSO who drives a squad car with his fire gear in the car, he was a firefighter for 2 years in a full-time fire department before he came here. He came to Cedar Falls because he saw the opportunity. He had an interest in both police and fire, and he saw the opportunity to be a police officer and a firefighter for the same city. He will be we're considering transferring him to the fire department to fill these roles that were being filled, as well as other PSOs who are certified firefighter ones, are trained by the firefighters in our fire department. The fire department, we've heard the rumors, we've heard the Facebook complaints, so they're not trained. Well, it's our Cedar Falls firefighters that train them. We have a 44-page manual that our firefighters use, and that PSO does not act until he's gone through all 44 pages and it's checked off by our firefighters. Also, he made a comment that this is an experiment. This is not an experiment. Cedar Falls is not experimenting. There is no accountability for me. Yes, there is accountability for me. Be careful when I say our model, but we went to Kalamazoo, Michigan. They've been a public safety department since the 1980s. They're a larger community than us, and they are 100% public safety officer at this point. They have made some significant improvements in their city as far as improving their fire and police service. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that this public safety department also adds police officers to the street without adding staff. So we have more police officers on the street, and we have more firefighters responding. And I can give you a great example. 2 weeks ago, we had a call at UNI. We had 19, between the police officers and firefighters, we had 19 working that could immediately respond to the scene. They were working at the time. That's not always the case. You know, sometimes it's 7, 8, or 9. But in the 30 years, well, our fire chief has been here for more than 30 years. He has seen the highest minimum staff level has been 7 in the last 30 years. We have seen, and about 2 or 3 years ago, we were at a fire scene, and it wasn't, turned out we didn't have to do any extinguishing work, but he turned around and said to me, and this is after we started the PSO program, wow, I got 14 people here. He goes, I've been here 30 years, and we've never had that many at a scene at a time. So we're moving ahead significantly. We're not hiring 1 PSO per firefighter. In the past, the most this fire department had in the fire department is in about the mid-30s for firefighters. We have low 20-some full-time firefighters now. We've got 20 PSOs now. We've got 18 in training. We're going to have somewhere near 60 firefighters available. Not all available all the time, but some for callbacks and some are on duty. So we have, as we increase our numbers through the training program, the 18 more, the police shifts will have significant number of PSOs, and the fire shift will have a certain number of firefighters. So our minimum staffing level will be higher than it's ever been in the history of this fire department. This is not an experiment. You know, quite frankly, I get a little irritated sometimes of all the negativity and the people that come up and don't know how the program operates, and it's getting frustrated. We have, quite frank with you, we have some firefighters that should leave, and we have some that are leaving. In fact, one is leaving, not necessarily maybe by his choice. And so we've got some issues here that we're dealing with internally. Again, we've reached out to the fire union. We want the fire union to meet with us. We'd like to resolve these issues. If we had a bad incident, believe me, it would be all over the papers and all over the media. We have not had bad incidents. We've had fires and we've had houses burned down, as we've had for the last 30 years, as had Waterloo, as had Des Moines and Dubuque and Cedar Rapids and any other fire department in town. They have had situations where house burns down. Many cities have had fatalities. It's a tragedy. These things occur whether you have 100 fire departments or 100 people in your fire department or you have 30. You know, I could go on and on and on about how this works and about all the different departments and do it, but in closing, I'd like to say, in the cities we have talked to that have gone through this, they've told us this is exactly what you're going to see. Is you're going to have resistance, and you're going to have a lot of it. That's why a lot of cities choose not to go to do this because of the resistance. But they said you're going to have a lot of resistance, and you just need to stick through it, because when it's done, you'll have a much better police department and a much better fire department than you've ever had. And I believe we will.